Every night in every city, this scene is repeated over and over again. Some say it's the oldest profession in the world, a part of the natural order of things, a victimless crime. We are not here to judge the right or wrong of prostitution, but what you may not know as you look upon this scene is that this prostitute is 16 years old. These are the victims of the victimless crime, children selling themselves on the streets of our city. Perhaps you've read about it in the newspapers or seen young boys hitchhiking on Santa Monica Boulevard with no apparent place to go. Of course, you can drive by or turn the page, but they remain on the street. No one knows the exact number, but authorities believe that of the thousands of runaways that come to Los Angeles every year, at least half of them are exposed to the world of prostitution and pornography. And of that number, a large percentage go on to become involved in other criminal activities. The result is time spent behind bars, where they quickly turn into bitter and hardened criminals. These are real kids, not unlike your own, perhaps. They all have feelings, faces, names. Let me introduce you to some teenagers who will tell us what has happened to them, and it will help us understand what it's like to be a child who is growing up too fast. Let us introduce you to Heather and Tina. This is Chuck. And Jerry. This is Jeannie. And this is Leanne. And through them, we will tell our story. For these are the children of the night.
Hanging out with pushers and pimps in neighborhood bars. Cheap motels are fixed for kicks and tricks and cars. Look at them down on their luck, freckle-faced kids. Well, this is also a story about the people who are trying to help. People who are trying to find a way to get these kids back on track, away from the degradation, abuse, and danger of a life hustling. They include Councilwoman Peggy Stevenson.
Their lives are really ruined, and we're very concerned about stopping that.
Philanthropist Representative Christy Hefner.
To begin to raise people's consciousness, really, about the seriousness of the problem and the need to have some kind of financial support to take care of these children.
And police officer Bill Dworin.
A 13-year-old prostitute on the street can make quite a bit of money. She was in San Francisco and met up with a madam. The madam was prostituting this girl out for up to $1,000 a night.
And especially a woman, Dr. Lois Lee, who has literally opened up her house to these kids, who has started to organize the first halfway house for teenage prostitutes.
40% of all the prostitutes on the street are juveniles. And where I was originally working with adult female prostitutes, we started a program for children because of the fact that we realized that there was such a high proportion of juvenile prostitutes. But what you find with runaways in general is that they can only support themselves through one of three ways. That is either through dope trafficking, petty theft, or prostitution. Now, if you stick any kid on the streets of Hollywood, you will find that there'll be plenty of men that solicit them for acts of prostitution.
Kids with nowhere to go. That's what we're talking about. Every year, thousands of kids find their home lives unlivable, so they take off. Or their parents kick them out of the house or refuse to take them back after they've run. So they're abandoned to survive any way they can.
I've been on the streets for about 3 years. I'm 19 years old. My stepfather kept coming on to me. And he wouldn't leave me alone. So my mother said I had to go. I guess if it's causing problems in her marriage, you know. She was married 3 times, so, you know, she wanted this one to work. So I split.
My stepdad's too strict on us and more than his own kids. Every time his kids turns around and does something wrong, that he doesn't do nothing about it. But if we turn around and do something wrong, he gets on our case about it.
Because my father died, no money, a lot of kids, no love, and that's how I got started. I mean, I would hang around really the wrong people, not just drug addicts that would want to take you in for the night for like half of a Quaalude or something, but it's just all it's getting very gross to me.
These recent studies indicate that teenage prostitution is a symptom of children being either physically or sexually abused as pre-teenagers. A recent survey in St. Louis indicated that 75% of the teenage prostitutes on the street had been molested one way or another as a child.
And so they run, children from all kinds of homes and backgrounds, from the middle-class suburbs, the inner-city ghetto, as well as the million-dollar house and the private school education. And they make their way to Hollywood, by thumb or by bus.
I couldn't believe, that she wasn't coming back. I really, and never, even in a nightmare would I have thought that she would have come to Hollywood. Never. And when she told me the circumstances, I just couldn't believe it. I started crying so bad, and I prayed that God would take my life right then and there, because I just couldn't take it anymore. I really and truly couldn't take it. Because to me, being with a prostitute and a pimp was something that I never would have thought of.
They come here because this is where the action is. And this is where the Dream Machine still says that you can be somebody.
I wanted to be in the movies. Isn't that what everyone wants?
But that's not what everybody gets. What they usually find is that they are forced to adapt to street life, a tougher, more violent world than they have ever known before.
Tell me that. Man. And I hate him. What'd he do? Man, what'd he do? What didn't he do? He went in there and ripped all of Farrah's clothes, my roommates. Yeah. Fucking took $240 out of our apartment. You better have to keep on. Oh.
I've been kidnapped before. Matter of fact, one guy that has raped me when I was like 10 years old just got the gas chamber, Rodney Acala. And, do you remember hearing about that? He killed a 12-year-old girl.
Somebody might come riding by, throw beer bottles at you. Something like that, I don't have no trouble from the truck, so smacked him upside the head to talk. Start giving me some.
Some kids, they normally carry a gun or a knife on them, or sometimes a can of maize. And most of these other teenage kids that are cruising on the boulevard, they pick up a hustler, and they take him that way out middle of nowhere, and the hustler don't know what to do except to use what he's got on him. That's the only way to get out of the mess.
In this life, where every open car door is a new and unknown danger, the teenage prostitutes, especially the girls, look for that authority that can guide and protect them. And the pimp they find usually becomes their most oppressive and dangerous tormentor.
It's like you've joined a club, a hate club that you really can't quit. And a lot of guys, like, for a pimp to lose a woman is like part of his income walking out of the door.
Typically, the kids run away because of rules and discipline in the home. But what happens with the pimp is that they enlist in an organization with a very set of rigid rules and regulations, more so than what they ever encountered in the home, and probably similar to something that you'd encounter in the military.
It's like it's instilled into them that whatever they do, it has to be done right. And if it's done wrong, they know that they'll have to be punished for it. They will have to answer sooner or later, one way or another. Some use coat hangers applied to the buttocks and the back of the thighs, or anywhere else maybe they can be hit at the time if the pimp is in a rage of fury. Anywhere is fair game. But a lot of times you don't want to hit them in the face because that would be like destroying your product.
I've been mistreated by pimps. I got kidnapped by a pimp. He beat me really bad. He beat me from head to toe, all the way from my back, not with the front, just from my back, all the way to the back of my legs with a hanger.
Not all the action takes place out on the street. If you know where to look, you can see the bars where the pimps hang out. Whorehouses in both apartment buildings and unquiet residential streets. Pimps and madams run these sweatshops where minors work for the privilege of further abuse. What kind of client looks for a teenage prostitute?
Anyone from a politician to a preacher, You know, from the guy on the street that works a construction job to somebody that makes $50,000 a year in a big office. They all come and they all pay.
The juvenile prostitute is really looking for love, really looking for a father figure, is really looking for a support system, is looking for guidance. They are more dependent. They are more prey to pimps, chicken hawks, and other kinds of criminals that can prey upon them.
And believe me, when parents are angry, boy, no pimp better get on our way. Because even as short as I am, if I didn't get to meet the man. And thank God that we didn't, because I think my husband would have killed him.
Typical of the psychological advantage the pimp has over the young prostitute can be seen in the case of a 16-year-old runaway named Tina. Lois found her working the streets and talked to her about her pimp, a pimp that Lois had heard about from other girls.
Where do you live? In a motel. With David? Yeah. You want to stay there? Yeah. You're not looking to get off the street? He loves me. What if you had another place to stay?
Where else am I going to stay? I have to stay out here and make money to pay our rent. But see, David, he got a real hot temper. And he, he might hit me.
Why would you stay with him?
Huh?
Why would you stay with him?
He loves me.
Do you love him?
Yeah, I love him. We're going to get married and have a baby.
When are you going to do this?
As soon as we save enough money, that's why I'm out here working. And, I'm going to miss business if I stand here and talk to you, so I got to go.
Where's David now?
I don't know.
He's not in the motel?
No.
Are you supposed to go meet him back at the motel?
Yeah, I'm supposed to, but not until I make enough money.
How much money do you have to make before you can go back there?
$300.
How much money did you make last night?
What was yesterday?
Tuesday.
Yesterday was Tuesday. I made $250.
From what time?
Oh, I come out here about 5:30 every night, and I stay out here until about, whenever I make enough money to go home.
But Tina didn't go home that night. Lois was able to persuade Tina to come to her house, and then made arrangements for Tina to meet a former prostitute of David's, so that Tina might wake up to this man's obvious lies and to her own exploitation.
If David loved you, why would he let you work the streets?
I already told you. To make enough money so we could save it, so we could have a baby. And
that's real important
house.
To you, isn't it, Tina?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you're ready to have a baby? Yes?
Yeah.
How old are you?
16.
Tina met with an older prostitute who used to be with the same pimp that she's with now. And she decided to go back to the pimp and confront him with the lies that he had told her about all the things he had done for Chris. And as the girls on the street say, we know that Tina went back and gave her pimp the blues. What will happen is Tina will come back. Once you make that connection, once we establish that rapport, all of our kids come back.
A juvenile should have a right to mature at their own speed, not being forced into sexual acts by peer pressure and by society. When you can say Brooke Shields is the sexual actress of the 80s, the model of the 80s, kind of shows the way society is thinking.
There is no question that we are all partly responsible for society's current fixation on youth and sexuality. It is everywhere you look, because we keep paying for it. Girls like Heather are both victim and a perpetrator of this trend, but ultimately, she is a victim.
I've turned tricks, and I worked in a massage parlor. I still do, off and on. I met a girl at a hotel that I was at, and she had a pimp, and she turned me on to him. So I worked Sunset for a while. I've met weird people, real weird people. Well, I mean, you know, my pimp disappeared, things like that. I'm gonna be all right. Once I get my apartment and get some money coming in, maybe meet somebody, I'm gonna, you know, I'll be a successful call girl and an actress. I want to be in the movies. That's why I'm here.
At the time I worked the streets, right, and I guess I picked up some pretty good people that were pretty nice people, actually. Doctors and psychologists and things like that, and they actually were more interested in my well-being, you know, but not that interested to get me an apartment or something like that, you know, but it's just, all it comes down to is survival and freedom to me.
So this is the problem. Thousands of teenagers pour into Los Angeles every year with no money, skills, and nowhere to go. In the past, there has been no one able to speak up on their behalf, provide them with shelter, food, counseling, and a chance to find a place for themselves that is neither home nor a juvenile hall. Dr. Lee has been trying almost single-handedly to fill that need. And over the last 5 years, more than 200 kids have stayed right here in Lois's modest two-bedroom apartment.
My friends were appalled at the fact that I could bring kids into my house, or even adult female prostitutes, and try and get them off drugs. The police were scared that the pimps were going to kill me. But being in a situation where I'm trying to find a place for a young woman who's been beaten up and beaten badly, a place for her to sleep, there's no facilities in town. She doesn't want to go back to the pimp. It's someone that really is ready to make a change in their life. What do? I had to bring them home. I had no place else to place them in the city. I had to. I couldn't say, well, you go back to your pimp and I'll go down to the Department of Public Social Services and we'll work something out within the next 4 weeks. I couldn't bring myself to do that.
Remember Tina? She is typical of the kids that Lois helps. And just as Lois predicted, Tina has come back. She is off the street. She has a job. And temporarily, she is staying, as hundreds of kids have before her with Lois.
Okay, how long were you gone?
5 or 6 days, I think.
Okay. And you came back because you found out David was lying to you. How long you been back?
Since Christmas Eve.
Okay. What's happened to you since then? What's happened to you?
I got a job. I'm working. That's about it.
What are you doing?
Working at answering service.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of this lady here?
She's great.
Yeah? Why is she great?
She's good people, because she cares.
Lois has started an organization called Children of the Night. Working with a few volunteers, she's been able to raise enough money to establish a hotline, get some kids into drug rehabilitation and job programs, provide legal and psychiatric counseling. But she is working hard to be able to fill the most pressing need.
A place to sleep and food to eat so that the kids don't have to sleep in condemned houses. They don't have to line themselves with a pimp so that they have a place to sleep at night. They don't have to expose themselves to chicken hawks and get involved in pornography. They don't have to steal. They don't have to turn tricks.
To that end, Lois, who needs to raise over $300,000 for a halfway house, now spends part of her time looking for that building that will eventually become the Children of the Night Center, and going out into the community and speaking to groups in an effort to meet that goal.
Kids have a right to be protected by what we call an enlightened society. There's a big need for this because there aren't any existing services for these kids in the city of Los Angeles.
Lois has also been looking for funding from City Hall and found Councilwoman Peggy Stevenson to be a sympathetic supporter.
We're very supportive, and Councilman Ferrer and I have earmarked some funds to help her, and we're working with her now, and she's working to formulate a program, find the proper agency to handle it, and we're hopeful that this will take care of really a major problem in the Hollywood area, and not only in Hollywood, but really the whole city.
Christy Hefner, representing the Playboy Foundation, has given money to the Children of the Night and feels these types of programs should receive more corporate funding.
It disappoints me, frankly, how many conservatives who claim to be so concerned about the family and wrap themselves in the cloak of the traditional family turn their back on the reality of problems of teenage pregnancy and teenage prostitution, as if they didn't fund contraceptive programs or they didn't fund programs like Children of the Night and ignored them, that the problems that those programs are designed to help would go away. And obviously the reverse is true. The need is already there. What we have to do is find solutions for the problem.
Can you give me a number? Yeah.
What kind of person does it take to go into the streets and help those in our society who have run or been pushed into its outer fringe? I think Leanne can express it best when she tells what Lois did for her.
I couldn't have made it. She fought for a year. I mean, I was on heroin. I didn't want to clean up. She was there for a year. She let me run. And when it was time for me to clean up, she knew, and she put forth all of her effort. And I wouldn't have made it without her. I wouldn't have had the strength, because I never had somebody I could open up to. And like I just opened up to her.
How do you feel about Lois?
I love her. Anything, I'd do anything for her.
Today, Leanne is working and back in school. Lois helped her to get out of that gray world of hustlers, dope addicts, and violent sexual deviants. Tina is away from her pimp and on the right track. Jeannie left the night we talked to her on an eastbound bus.
And the Los Angeles Police Department found Mrs. Rafferty's daughter, and she's back home.
Keep on telling them that you love them, even though you want to kill them for them hurting you the way they did. Tell them to, just keep telling them that you love them. She has just done 100% turnaround, where I can almost positively say now that no way would she run away again.
But for every kid who gets off the streets of Hollywood, there are still thousands of the children of the night who are left behind. I'm Paul Moyer.
In neighborhood bars, cheap motels are fixed for kicks and tricks and cars. Look at them down on their luck, freckle-faced kids, shooting up, freaking out, and then hitting the skids. Just kids, and only we can save them, preserve the life we gave them. We've got to fight to win them, and that also means we've got to fight their wars. They could be yours, they could be yours. Well, we better start to save the children, save the children of the night. We better start to care about the children. It's the only way that we're gonna survive. The children of the night are worth the fight. The children of the night are worth the fight. The children of the